So what we're going to do is, now that the Great Reset has been branded a conspiracy theory by prime ministers and the media alike, the fact checkers are saying it's now a right-wing conspiracy theory, we are going to play their own video from 11 months ago where they explain, hip and cool, what the Great Reset really is. Here, this is them, not me. World Economic Forum loves you, just remember. So does apparently YouTube with the with the wheel. I guess they don't want us to play this one on the air,
The pandemic has radically changed the world as we know it. And the actions we take today as we work to recover will define our generation.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis.
2020 has been challenging on a lot of levels, as economic, environmental, and societal frailties have been laid bare. But it's also proved that when we need to, we can act rapidly and restructure our lives.
You can act rapidly and be a slave, and all of this is your fault from things before. I mean, this is their agenda. They're putting it out there.
Recovery from the pandemic is an opportunity. We can see rays of hope in the form of a vaccine, but there is no vaccine for the planet. Nature needs a bailout.
See, again, they're letting you know right out of the gates. They're transitioning from what? From the vaccine to nature needing a bailout. And it went from this very dark, everything was gray and black and white. Don't worry, they're getting the bailout, and all of a sudden everything's colorful again. Everything's going to get better. The subliminal advertising in this thing is over the top.
You don't want to go back to the status quo that you had before, simply because it was the status quo that got us here.
With everything falling apart, we can reshape the...
Everything wasn't falling apart. Everything still isn't falling apart. When they say this, again, this is to try to evoke an emotion based on no facts whatsoever. Is your life totally and completely falling apart? Are you allowing even the mechanisms that they're using to let your life fall apart? If you have, you need the greater reset within your own life and soul so you can fight this ridiculousness.
The world in ways we couldn't before. Ways that better address so many of the challenges we face.
Nature, energy, fires, like what is...
And that's why so many are calling for a great reset. A great reset? That sounds more like buzzword bingo masking some nefarious plan for world domination.
So they like totally acknowledge that, yeah.
Put it out there.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you know, I mean, it is the global elite's plan for the future, and it sounds nefarious, and we're going to have puppet strings and stuff, but come on. No way, right?
Hands up, this kind of slogan hasn't gone down well. But all we really want to say is that we all have an opportunity to build a better world. And it's not surprising that people who've been disenfranchised by a broken system and pushed even further by the pandemic will suspect global leaders of conspiracy. But the world's not that simple.
The world's not that simple. No, it's very, very complex when you have sociopaths at the top doing the bidding, okay, of a agenda that you're admitting here, trying to repackage as something positive while acknowledging it's dark as fuck.
Every one of us has differing priorities, values, and ideas. That's part of why solutions are so hard to come by, and why we all need to be involved in the decision-making. Because whether it's politicians, CEOs, academics, activists, or you, we're all about getting people together, even those you may not like, to sit down at the table and develop solutions that work for all.
Already letting you know that people are going to be having their accounts masked.
What was that even supposed to reference? Like the account suspended thing?
Yeah,
like,
so in other words, we want everybody involved. Even if you've been kicked off social media before, we can bring you back into the circle and the fold, be a part of the Great Reset. We won't suspend your account again.
All of us. But
we need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work.
The great narrative you were just talking about and the second level of this book.
That trust is hard to come by.
It's time for people to work together, listen to each other, and build this trust so we can move towards a better world. And we really need one. Because while the pandemic affects us all, it's clear it affects some more than others.
The first people who are hit are the people at the front, those who are vulnerable. It is those on the front line who take it first.
That is absolutely a lie. The entire society was hit hard and hit first with the shutdowns, the lockdowns, the economic strain, the mental strain.
I just sent you a link, Jason, if you want to put it on screen for a second, because the couple things stood out there. And this is literally just published in the last day or so from the World Economic Forum website. It was the one I was referencing, that it says, this is what governance could look like. Just do a control F of the word nature, and you'll see what I'm talking about real quick, that this is the continued part of their agenda. They talk about, this is the buzzwords. This is the fluffy languages. They want to make it seem like they give a crap about nature and, the earth. But if you listen to what they're saying things like the primacy of nature, like putting nature above humans. And this is something that people have been warning about for a while. Just go ahead and look at the first 2 or 3 sentences, and it says, like, we need a society built around the primacy of nature. Like, it's the same thing that, again, trying to pretend like this is about saving the climate, but they're not saying like we need to balance humans and the earth together. They're saying we need to put the earth, nature, whatever they define that as, above humans.
And listen, they're selling you on the idea that unelected bureaucrats and corporations should have a seat at the table. Did you see that Bloomberg piece? Did we talk about that? Where it was like a 4-page piece on how Amazon and Google and all these, establishments should be sitting there. And the more and more, that I look into that NASA document, the more and more of it comes into fruition. One of the things that I hadn't focused on, and again, since we were talking so much about censorship and narrative control, you know what they realized in this? A thing called CNN syndrome. Are you aware of what CNN syndrome is? So this is that NASA document, the Future Strategic Warfare one.
Oh yeah, I remember you going over this, but yeah, go through it again. This is extremely important. I hope everybody hearing this recognizes how valuable this document is.
Yeah, and well, this document right here, this is again 0701 pre 9/11, and they talk about exploiting CNN syndrome, and it's a term that was created, and I show this in a previous video with Bill Gates from last week, after the Gulf War, and how they realized it was a tool to use for psychological warfare. Okay, and basically enable their methods of propaganda to continue. And in this, it says what? Capture and torture Americans in living color on prime time. To use that. Now, you could get into 9/11 literally being on television again and again and again, and then ISIS and Al-Qaeda, of course, and the beheading videos and those type of things that you were seeing, where you were literally seeing Americans captured and tortured on live TV, right? Like all the time. I mean, that's there. But then they also talk about what? Not only serious psychological warfare at the bottom and collateral damage exploitations, aka what you just saw. Oh, the vulnerable and the weak, it hit them the hardest. We need to protect them. Exploiting people that have actually succumbed to this. They talk about terror attacks within the United States that go beyond what we saw on 9/11 in binary, in other words, zeros and ones cyber attacks, biological attacks, and obviously it's coming out more and more that this is a biological weapon. I don't even think the nature theory will be around in 2 years. It will be whether it was leaked or whether it was purposely put out there. And they talk about the critical infrastructure takedown, aka cyber polygon, and IO and IW, that is internet weapons and infrastructure right there.
Why do you think they call it the CNN syndrome? Does it explain that? Like, is it just because, like,
okay,
hey,
so not in the document, but you can actually look it up. There are books and papers on it. So you gotta dig a little deep, but watch this. We'll do it here. So CNN syndrome, for the audience that didn't check out my Bill Gates and DARPA video. Let's see. Let's get this out of here. So this is how you find information, folks. This is how Jason Burmis does it. Because obviously the first thing that comes up is a bunch of Johnny nonsense that's not going to give you anything. Now, the document's from 2001, so you go over here to Tools. Instead of Anytime, you do a custom range. And CNN didn't exist before 1980-something, but I'll just go 1980 to 2002, because that's after the document. So anything referenced there. Boom, look at this. Oh, responsibility, media roles in local emergency planning. Coverage of war seems to blur the line between news and entertainment, war in the Gulf. And this talks about CNN and its impact, and there were entire books written on the subject. So this was basically the tool, okay, that they were exploiting. They realized that media was going to get bigger, that it was going to be an exploitative tool beyond just what they had done in Mockingbird, and they used it in war documents. There's a couple books that I reference in the video because I had a little more time to go over it. But I mean, literally, this is training.fema.gov if you want to get it. And it says in the opening line in 1999, so this again is a government term. Anybody can see it right here. Some call this the CNN syndrome, in that ready accessibility of camcorders to local disasters results in national coverage of local events. So again, exploiting everything on a global level, and obviously that expands. But that's out of a FEMA document. So
yeah, that's some important stuff there for sure, to understand the context of how CNN and just the corporate media can shape that narrative again.
Well, they're the fact checkers, right? And the craziest thing is that when we talk about narrative control, to say that Twitter or Google is a private company, no. Just like the document says, they're a Trojan horse civilian system. They are an extension of the military-industrial complex that has no resemblance to the constitutional republic that this country was erected in. Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and that was an excerpt of my interview with Derek Brose from the Conscious Resistance. If you want to find out how you can be part of the Greater Reset Tour, which is going to have a 5-day event coming up, please go over to Rockfin, check out the whole video. It's almost an hour long. So many things that we just can no longer discuss on this channel. So go make the free Rockfin account and watch it there. But I want to remind everybody that if you want to ask a video question, you want your pretty little face on the Info Warrior with Jason Burmis, you can go to Getter, and the pinned post explains what the rules are, and you can just place a video underneath. In fact, we've already got people doing it there, and also on my Twitter, where the same pinned post is, and you can send your question or comment via a video of yourself right now. So go check out the entire video over at the Rockfin. Remember, it's never about left or right. It's always about right and wrong, and we will see you all on the flip side.